Hey, this is Kieran with Coach's Corner Chats, and joining me is Joe Quigley. Joe, where are you at and what are you up to?
So I am in Manchester, England. That's where I was born and raised. I'm currently working as a franchise owner at the Football Fun Factory. Just had a session this evening. So just kind of winding down for the day.
And what exactly is Football Fun Factory? It sounds awesome, but what does that entail?
It is awesome. I will definitely agree with you on that one. So Football Fun Factory is an organization that was started about 4 years ago, um, down in Cambridge by a guy called James. And his whole philosophy was making sure that children had fun playing football. So it wasn't about developing the child as a good player. It wasn't about anything else other than good, clean fun for children playing soccer or football, as we call it over here. And I became aware of the organization about 2 years ago, and I've been involved since. I started my franchise November of 2021. So I've been going for about 15 months, and it's everything that I believe that the game should be in a business. And the whole organization's main goal for the future is to be the biggest football coaching organization in the world.
What is it about the Football Fun Factory that quote unquote makes it fun? What are some of the activities or things that you all provide for the players?
So everything we do is focused around the child. So we don't call them players, we call them children, because that's essentially what we are coaching, a child. And our main focus is to develop the child first by using football as a tool. So, for example, the youngest children we have who come to our programs are 2, and the oldest that come are 12. So we get everything in between. And our main focus is to make sure that the children develop as people first, so they have the skills that they can learn within the game in terms of communication, respect, teamwork, etc. And they can take those skills away from the pitch and into their life, so into school, into their friendship groups, to their family. So it's not about developing a player, it's about developing a child through football while they have a ton of fun doing it. So all the games that we play are focused on everybody getting loads of touches. Everything is about positive reinforcement. Everything is about encouragement of the individual within the games that we play. So we're not focused on where are they going to go and play after they've been at the Football Fun Factory, in terms of they're going to go to an elite club, are they going to go to an academy, are they going to go here, are they going to go there. All we focus on is how much fun are they going to have when they're with us. And that's everything that we do in terms of our planning, is making sure that it's designed so the children have a blast.
So, do you run into kind of pushback from parents who are like, "Hey, I want my player to go to the next level. I want them to go to academy." You're surrounded by Premier League, or are they more open to this idea of like, "Oh, this is awesome. My kid can go out there have some fun, and there's no major expectations on them."
So we're very clear with our marketing, with our promotion, with our communication with parents, that we are not an elite football club. We are not gonna, you know, train your child to a certain level so they can then go off and do X, Y, and Z. We're very clear that our organization is all about enjoyment and fun through football. So if a parent comes to us and says, "Oh, I want my child to go and play at Man United's academy in the future," or whatever it is that their ambition is, we say that's fine, but we may not be what you're looking for. A lot of the children that come to us are the children that don't really play a lot of soccer at school with their friends, or they're not involved with a team, or may want to play in a team but don't have a lot of confidence. So we just make sure that they come, they have a good time, they get loads of touches on the ball, they make some new friends, they meet the coaches, they learn some skills with a ball, but also without a ball. And at the end of the day, if parents want their child to have a good time, then we're the place for them, because we don't focus on anything else other than having a good time.
For Joe, when did soccer become kind of a passion or part of your life? Were you playing as a youngster? Kind of how did this whole soccer thing start for you?
So in England, you're either football or you're something else. I was football from day one. My dad, big football man. loved playing, loved Manchester United was his team. You know, all my cousins, my friends, everybody I was around played football. So I can't remember the first time I kicked a ball because I was very, very young, I would imagine. But it's always been a part of my life. I played from in a team from when I was about 8. I started coaching with my dad, sort of helping him out with sessions when I was about 14. Um, and it's just something that I've always loved. I love the game of football. It's given me so many opportunities as a person. You know, I made so many friends through football playing as a child. I had so many great memories. I traveled to the US when I think I was about 14 or 15 with my high school, and we did a tour down in Baltimore. So my whole life has been football, and I don't play as much as I used to, but I coach, and I've always been involved in football, and I always want to be involved in football because it's such an incredible thing. You know, it's a game at the heart, but it's so much more than that too. It's a way of bringing people together. It's a way of introducing people from different cultures. It's. I see football as a tool to drive not just people forward, but society as well. You know, bring people together and connect. Like for example, you and I right now, we've connected from two completely different continents, but at the heart of it, it's football or soccer. You know, I have the family I referenced there that I traveled to the States years ago as a teenager. I'm still in touch with the family who hosted me. I went to their son's wedding a couple of years ago. I met my wife in New Jersey because of football, because I lived and coached in Jersey for 9 years, and she's from Colombia, and we were both there at the same time. And one of the kids that she used to look after as an au pair was one of the kids who was on my team. So football is just something that I see as not just a game, but it's so much more than that, and I love it. I love the essence of it, the core. You know, just to play. It's a game, and at the end of the day, it's all about playing. And I absolutely love it. I just can't imagine what my life would be if football wasn't part of it.
So a lot to kind of peel away at there. First thing I want to ask about is what was the experience of coaching with your dad? Like he kind of sounds like he's into it, loves soccer, gets you into it, like Man U and all that type of stuff. What's it like to be on the sidelines, helping him at practices? Like, was he kind of that first mentor, that first person you kind of looked at and said, "I kind of like this coaching thing"?
Oh, for sure. I mean, my dad was a teacher for 44 years, so he always worked with children. And when he took some time away from teaching, um, I naturally wanted to go along. I think initially when he was coaching, I actually went along to play. Um, but then over time, I was like, "Oh, this is actually interesting. I like this. I want to be involved with that. I want to help kids who are younger than me at the time be better." But you know, I've always had a great relationship with my father. We're very, very close, and he is definitely one of the main reasons why I love football in the first place, but why I got into coaching because he was doing it, and I that piqued my interest because you know, most kids or most boys who see their father want to be like their father, I think, or I did anyway. And you know, seeing my dad work with children and coach the game and play, I just wanted to be like him. So that's naturally how I got into coaching, and it was just something that, like I said, I couldn't imagine my life being anything different now. And he was definitely a huge part of that because if he hadn't have taken that time away from teaching and he hadn't been coaching at the time, I may have not got into coaching because it wasn't something I thought of as a youngster. I was just so focused on playing and it was all about playing and playing. But there's definitely a point where, as a youngster, especially in England and for me, if you know, there's a moment where you realize I'm not going to be a professional soccer player. How else am I going to stay involved in the game? And coaching was just an obvious pathway for me because I love the game, but I also enjoyed working with children too.
You mentioned coming over to the States with your team when you were 14. What what was some of the things that you remember about coming to the States that kind of stands out now, even if you think about because it's a completely different kind of culture and vibe. What were some of the things, if you think back when you came over, you were like, wow, this is interesting or completely different? Or what were some of the takeaways?
I think as a youngster, I didn't really focus too much on what was going on. I was just kind of living in the moment. I'd been to America before because I have family over there. So I had been to the States before, but going to Baltimore with a bunch of friends from high school and a couple of teachers and to play was brilliant. I remember the day we flew over. We flew from Manchester to Dublin, Dublin to Boston, Boston to Baltimore, and one of the flights was delayed. I can't remember which one. So we ended up turning up to this host family's house at like midnight, and they were a great host family. They waited up. The kids stayed up. They waited for us because they wanted to meet us, which was exciting for us. I remember we played indoor football. That's one thing I do now that you mention it. So in England we play a lot of five-a-side indoor, but over there in Baltimore they had bigger indoor pitches for I think it was about 7 or 8 a side, and I loved that. I really enjoyed playing in there because it was something we hadn't done before, or I hadn't done before. Um, and I always remember as well, there was this perception of American soccer in England that the Americans just weren't very good at soccer. And then when we went over there and we played, I was like, you know what, these guys aren't as bad as people think. And there was definitely that misconception that Americans could only play basketball or football or baseball. I was like, no, and some of the kids we played against were very, very good. Um, and there was other things. I remember we took a trip one day. The coaches hired a minibus, so we could travel around, and we were trying to drive into the harbor down at Baltimore. And the whoever the teacher was that was driving took a wrong turn. We ended up in, let's just say, the wrong area of Baltimore. Um, and he went into the gas station to ask for directions, and he was politely told, "You shouldn't be here. Leave." So we took off as fast as we could. Just silly little things like that. I always remember. I don't remember the matches that we played. I don't remember much of the soccer side of it. I just remember the people, the family, the experience of going to DC, going into the harbor at Baltimore. The fun stuff that you remember as a kid. Those were the best memories that I took away from that trip for sure.
So, as you're coaching with your dad, what goes next? Is there a part where you just say, "Look, I'd like to start coaching maybe my own team," or like how does the next step of your like coaching journey? How's that go?
Yeah, so for me, I started working with my dad, just helping him out a little bit, and then so he wasn't coaching a team at the time. He was working for an organization called Bobby Charlton Soccer Schools. Um, so the organization, they used to run like weekend programs, holiday camps, road shows. So they would travel around the UK delivering different weekly training programs and events for children. And I remember sort of slowly over time, I would less and less help my dad and be more sort of given these younger groups of sort of 5, 6, 7 year olds because I was young. So they didn't want to give me 10, 11, 12 year olds. They'd give me the younger groups.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I don't think a lot of the older coaches liked coaching those younger groups. So I think that's kind of why I was given them, but I absolutely loved it. And that was a good experience for me because I'm a big believer in learning by doing. That's the kind of person I am. Like if you sit me down in a classroom and say, this is how you coach a group of 5 year olds, wouldn't work for me. If you give me a group of 5 or 6 year olds and said, okay, you got an hour with them, go figure it out. I love that. So that was a big step for me was learning by doing, learning by actually being thrown in at the deep end, as they say, and taking groups and just learning through coaching and experimenting, making mistakes, trying this practice or this game doesn't work. Okay, adapt it, try something different, or learning from the other coaches. Bobby's was great because there were so many coaches, probably similar to my age now, around sort of like late 20s, early 30s, um, that I would look at and say, okay, what are they doing? Why are they doing it that way? Or why are they running that particular session with that particular group, or just standing at the side and listening to them coach or watching them coach. That was how I sort of started my coaching journey, was by almost copying. Coaching is about sharing ideas and stuff, and that's what I did. I tried to just copy those coaches because I thought they were awesome. I used to look up to these coaches and think those guys are incredible. Um, and yeah, over time it just became more and more of me taking a lead with a group, or coaching a game with a team that I've never met before, something like that. And then that kind of led on to me wanting to go and coach elsewhere, and that's how I ended up in Jersey.
So then, how do you end up in Jersey? How does one that say, I want to go and kind of expand my coaching? How do you go from England and end up in New Jersey?
it was it was actually a complete fluke. I was in the UK. I'd been over in America the summer of 2007 at a college, Rochester College in Michigan. I was offered a scholarship. I went over. It didn't quite work out how I wanted it to work out, and I left. So towards the end of 2007, I was back home in Manchester. I was just online looking on Google and just typing in like soccer coaching jobs or football coaching jobs. And this job, um, when you do a Google search, like some are sponsored or some are big hitters, and this one popped up at the top, and I clicked on it just for nosiness more than anything. I think because I think it said something about coaching the USA, and that really piqued my interest. And one of the first things I saw on the page of UK Elite, which was the name of the company, was that they were doing interviews in Manchester like in a month's time. So I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So I just filled in an application, and they came back to me and said, yeah, we're doing the interviews. Come along, we'll have a look at your coach. And that was the start of a very long journey. I remember going off to Manchester Uni, and there was about maybe 20 coaches there, all kind of trying to show the staff from UK Elite what they could do. Did my 20-minute session. At the time, I thought it was awesome. Thinking back now, it was probably very, very average because I was like 19. I was very wet behind the ears as a coach. But I did the session and played in a couple of other sessions that people were putting on. And then about a week later, they came back to me and said, we'd like to bring you out for 9 months. So March 2008 was my sort of first coaching experience abroad, living away from family, living away from home, and again being thrown in at the deep end.
I was going to ask, so what's that move like? Like you're going to a whole new country, you're leaving dad behind, you're like family. I know you've got some in the States, but what was that experience like at your age of 19? We're all trying to figure things out in our lives at that age. What was that like? And what were some of the things that you remember like, man, this is an eye-opening experience when you came over?
I think initially it was excitement, being offered a position to go and work abroad, to live in America, which I'd been to a couple of times, and I loved it. I loved being in America. It was a bit nerve wracking in the sense that I was going out on my own. I didn't know anybody else that was going. UK Elite were fantastic. Like they called me probably a month, 2 months ahead of time, told me where I'd be living, kind of slowly introduced us to the people that we'd be living with. So they would house coaches together. And, so the first time I went, I lived with 5 other guys, didn't know any of them before I arrived in Jersey. I think the first time I actually physically met them was at Newark Airport. So that kind of Manchester to London was very nerve wracking. I think my mum actually drove me to the airport because I wasn't confident taking a train. I wasn't confident flying on my own, so she took me down. And then, when you arrive at the airport, you kind of me anyway. I was trying to suss out who's going out to America, who looks like a young coach, who looks like I could be kind of friends with this person or that person. And I remember speaking to one of the guys. He was in a very similar position, going out for the first time, didn't know anybody. But then slowly over time, it became, oh, this is amazing. You're living in a house with 6 people who are in the same situation as you are. You're all out there to coach. You're all away from family. You're all British. You're all of a similar age. You all want to learn, but you also want to have a good time as a teenager or as a youngster. So yeah, it was just a brilliant experience. And my initial 9-month contract turned into 9 years of coaching out with UK Elite. So even though it was very nerve wracking in the beginning, it was the probably the best experience of my life because it just started to open up so many doors, but it also gave me an education within coaching as well that I don't think I could have got going off to university and doing a degree in a similar field.
What was your parents' reaction when you said, "Hey, I'm gonna go coach, but I'm going overseas." So now you're going away, which started out at 9 months and then turned into 9 years. were they excited? Was there some apprehension, or were they supportive, like, hey, go chase your dreams? This is a big step for you?
So two very different reactions from two very different people. My dad was always very much go for it, try it. If it doesn't work out, you can always come back. Whereas my mom, as supportive as she was on the outside, on the inside, I know she wasn't overly excited about her son going to live away and being abroad and 8 hours away on a plane. Um, so I think it was tough for my mom because I'd been at home for 20 years and all of a sudden I was going away and living abroad for 9 months initially. For my dad, he was very just, try it, give it a go. He was always very supportive, and I think that's why my dad and I were very close and connected so easily because he was always supportive of what I wanted to try, whether I figured it out or I failed. He was always like, "Go for it." Um, so it was interesting, shall we say? But at the time, it was good because Skype was becoming a thing, so I could connect with them pretty easily every day or every other day. Facebook was just kind of slowly working its way into my world, so I could connect with my parents pretty easily. So as hard as it was, I'm a very independent person. It didn't bother me at all. Um, I was like, if I can do this a couple of times a week, that's enough for me. But I never went to university or college, as you guys would call it. So I never really had that experience of living away from home and figuring things out for myself and learning to cook and clean and do my laundry and take care of my finances and all that sort of stuff. So that was my kind of college experience of being away from home and doing it on my own, even though I had other people around me that were doing the same thing at the same time. So yeah, it was interesting, but it was a great experience for me, and I'll never forget it. And I can never thank the UK Elite organization enough because they gave me the opportunity and they opened up so many doors for me to get to where I am today.
What was it that at the end of that initial 9 months, what was the conversation between you and the UK Elite and the other coaches that were there that kept you there even longer?
So the way the visa worked, my visa was a March to November contract, so it was like a seasonal. So I was there for the spring season, the summer, and for the fall season. And I actually left the end of the first year. I left a couple of weeks early, so I think we were all scheduled to leave like middle of November time ish, something like that. My grandmother had passed away right before Halloween, so I actually left a couple of weeks early, and I never knew that I was going to go back. Like I was it was never I'd never really had that conversation yet um, about am I coming back next year or do I want to go back next year? And I was worried that because I'd left a couple of weeks early that they wouldn't want me back because I'd kind of let a few people down or I'd stopped coaching a couple of teams before the end of the fall season or whatever. But again, UK Elite were brilliant with me because they said no, it's fine. Fly home, go be with your family, go do what you need to do. They actually wanted me to go back like after the funeral. Um, but I was just like, well, if I go for a week and then come back, I'm only back for 10 days. I'd rather just stay home and kind of work through this and then come back next year. And like I said, they were fantastic with me. They let me go. They let me be with family. Um, and then, excuse me, within a couple of weeks, they were on the phone or on the email saying, "Don't worry about it. Like we definitely want you to come back. You've done good work. You've done everything we asked you to do. We like you." So it was a worry at first, but then again, they were very good with me because I think they knew I was only 20, 21 at the end of that first year. So even though you think you're old at 21, you're really not. And they were really good with me. They really looked after me. I guess because they'd probably seen it all before with people going home and things happened here and there. But they were absolutely brilliant with me. And I went back 2009 and did another 9 months, and then did the same in 2010, then the same in 2011. And then my full-time 5-year contract started 2012. So they were brilliant with me. They really looked after me, and they they were very good with staff. They really looked after their coaches because the guys who ran UK Elite were all British as well. So they'd obviously been through that journey before all of us. So they knew how tough it could be. They knew what support you would need. They knew everything. They really did look after us. And, there were gripes and there were things that didn't work out for everybody. But looking back now, they were brilliant with me. Absolutely brilliant.
And you mentioned earlier as you're coaching in the States, that's when you meet your future wife. How does that come about? Is she a coach, or how do your paths meet?
Um, Again, football brought us together, but in the very, very strangest of ways. So my wife is actually Colombian, and she was an au pair. So I think she moved over to the US around sort of early 2010. She was living with a family. They had 6 kids, so she was like their main support with the children. Um, and then fast forward to 2012, I start coaching a team of boys. I think they were U9, and Kelly was one of the boys. She was the au pair, so that was kind of how we kind of met. Like she would bring him to practice. Um, Very unprofessional of me. I was coaching, and I kind of see her out the corner of my eye, and I'm like, oh, she's cute, and da da da. But I didn't speak to her because I was like, no, I'm not brave enough, and I was very shy. I'm still very shy, but yeah, she used to bring him to practice, and I would see her, but never really spoke to her. And then there was one point where she didn't come for a while, and I was like, oh, I guess she doesn't work for them anymore or whatever. So I didn't think too much of it. And then there was, is it Columbus Day in October? Columbus Day
Uh,
weekend.
I'm not.
Is that
I think Columbus Days. Okay, oh, I'm awful with that with dates and stuff.
anyway? Yeah, one of those holiday weekends. It was the October holiday weekend. I think it's Columbus Day. We had a tournament, and she was there with the boy. And I plucked up the courage to just go and speak to her after one of the games in the parking lot because I saw her, and I gave her my number, and we went out for drinks a couple of days later, or dinner or something like that. And we kept it very quiet because I wasn't sure how the company would react to me dating the au pair of one of the children who played on the team. I wasn't sure how the family would react. So we probably dated for about 2 or 3 months before we actually told any of my colleagues, the family, anybody. And we've been together ever since. So it was a very strange. No, it wasn't strange, but it was. I guess it was strange how we were both in Jersey at the same time. I grew up here, she grew up down in South America. We both ended up in Chester, New Jersey, and that's how we met. And we've been together. It'll be, hold on, 11 years in October.
So, does as you're continuing to coach and your relationship's growing, after those 9 years, are you still doing stuff in the States, or do you end up moving back to England?
So we moved back to the UK August of 2016. Um, Kelly she was an au pair, then she was on a student visa. Then she had a 1 year OPT, it was called. So she was allowed to work for a year after she'd finished college. Um, and probably about May of 2016, we found out that her visa wasn't going to be extended. And my visa was going to run out at the end of 2016. So we kind of had a choice. She could leave and I could stay for a bit, and then, or we could both try and stay on other visas, or we could go to Colombia, or we could come back to the UK. So we made the choice to come back to England. Um, it was a really tough choice because I'd been there for 9 years. Kelly had been there for about 6, and we built a really good life separately and then together. Um, it was a really tough decision, both personally and professionally, because, like I said, Kelly had been brilliant with me for 9 years. Kelly and I had made some great friends through work, through her school. Um, so it was one of those things where at the time we thought we were making the best decision for ourselves, because Kelly was kind of being forced into it with her visa situation. And then with mine coming up a couple of months later, we just took the decision to leave that summer, and kind of reset our lives back in the UK, which was a big change for both of us, especially for Kelly because she'd never been here before. She'd never been to the UK before she actually sort of came to live here. So, that was a big jump for her. Bit strange for me coming back because I kind of never really wanted to come back, but then circumstances and things that are out of your control kind of dictate some decisions or kind of force you into making decisions. So yeah, that was a tricky one, but it brought us back here, and we've been here now for what it'll be 7 years in September. So it's worked out nicely. We've always talked about coming back to the US because it's something that it's a place we both love. Um, it's a place that we would like. We have a daughter now as well, so it's a place that we would like our daughter to experience at some point in her life. And I think once the right opportunity presents itself, we'll make our way back over. But that's a story for another time.
So when you do make the move back to England, do you have plans for coaching, or when you get back to the UK, are you just like, okay, once I get there, we'll get settled, we'll kind of figure things out?
Yeah, it was more of. I mean, I was always going to stay in coaching, but I didn't have anything lined up. Um, so when we got back here, I didn't really have any coaching ready to go. I knew a few people, my dad's contacts that I'd worked with in the past, or there's a lot of local clubs in and around Manchester. There's loads of football opportunities. Excuse me. So it didn't take too long to find coaching. Once I got back, I picked up little bits and pieces here and there. But the one thing that was a struggle was for Kelly to be here. I had to kind of be her sponsor, so I had to earn a certain salary to show that I could sort of provide for her, etc. So that was tricky because unless you get a really good coaching job in the UK in an academy or at a very very high level, the money is not great. It's very very different to what a coach would probably experience in the US. Um, excuse me. So I was kind of coaching and then working a full time job on the side of it, so I could make sure that Kelly could stay, that we could show um, that I can provide for her, so then she can have a visa, she can stay here, then she can start working, etc. So the coaching thing, I wouldn't say it stopped, but it definitely took a back seat when I got back here, just because other things became priority. But it never really went away. But the less coaching I did, the more the bug was growing inside me to want to coach more. Um, so it worked out nicely because I took a back seat from coaching, but because I did that, it made me want to coach even more, and that's how I knew I wanted to get back into it. So slowly over time, more coaching came in, and then when this opportunity with the Football Fun Factory presented itself, and um, it just gave me a chance to get back in full time and actually work with children again, be in charge of my own schedule, be in charge of my own time, etc., etc. So even though it wasn't ideal in the beginning in terms of coaching, over time it slowly worked itself out.
What's it been like for Kelly to be kind of that your support, and like what has her take been about being around you, where she knew that you wanted to coach and the bug was growing, and even now as you're running your own football fun factory, how has she been kind of that support that you've needed throughout even just the journey back to the UK, and even when you're in New Jersey, how has she kind of fit as a puzzle piece in this whole journey of yours?
Unbelievable. If any partner of a coach will tell you that being the partner of a coach is probably one of the hardest things to do, because coaching hours are so unsociable. You're coaching evenings, you're coaching weekends, you're working holiday weekends when you're in the US. Um, but Kelly has always allowed me to be myself when I have to be the coach. She's never said, "Oh, I don't want you to go," or "That's not fair," or whatever it may be. She's always given me the encouragement to go and do what I love to do. Um, and that was super important for me, because if I can't coach and I can't work with children, then I'm not doing what I love. And she knew that from the day she met me. I mean, that's how we met. She met me as a coach. She met me through coaching, so she knew what she was getting into when she signed on the dotted line, shall we say? Um, but the beauty of her support is now that I can go and coach and she can stay at home with our little girl. So it's not always ideal. I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, we have all this amazing time together," because, like I said, coaching hours can be very unsociable. Now I'm working Sunday mornings, I'm working evenings, I'm working school holidays. I'm working birthday parties when they come. So it can be tough at times, but the beauty of being my own boss is that I can now be a bit more selective with when I coach. So I can take that time to take a step back if I need to. But yeah, she's been unbelievable. She's been unbelievable because she's just let me be myself and let me go and coach and let me explore these opportunities when they arise. And I know if something presented itself in the future and we had to uproot and move and try somewhere new, she'd be like, okay, let's go for it. And that's super important to me because I know that she'll be there for me, for her, for our family, despite me wanting to uproot everything to go and coach elsewhere.
What was it about one, it sounds like you really love the whole idea of Football Fun Factory, about just kids having fun, and it just happens to be that soccer is what they're getting to experience. What was the step like to say, you know what, I think I might like to go and kind of help build Football Fun Factory and grow it and kind of take over my own kind of branch of it, I guess, in a way?
Yeah, it was a big deal for me because when I started the franchise, um, I was working a full time job, and I'd made the decision pretty early on that I was going to stop working the full time job and just focus on the Football Fun Factory. Um, and it was a leap of faith, because you kind of giving up this guaranteed salary that you're going to get from your job, and you're now going to go and kind of bank on yourself and put all those eggs in that one basket and say, right, I'm going to go all in on this. And it was a big leap because you're never quite sure what's going to happen, especially, I mean, this is the first time I've ever run my own business. So it was a big learning curve for me. It still is, because I'm not very business minded. I think like a coach. I don't think like a business owner. So I don't think money, money, money. I think children having fun playing football. And if the money's comes, then great. But I'm not going to chase the money. I'm going to make sure these kids are having a blast. And that, there's times it's been tough because with Kelly's visa situation, she can't claim certain benefits, or she can't, get certain perks that a citizen of this country can get. So we bundled through, shall we say? But again, like I said earlier, her support has been fantastic, and it's been hard for me to kind of switch from just a coach mindset to now I'm a coach and a business owner mindset. That's been the biggest transition for me because I'm learning as I go. I'm learning on the job. I'm not learning in a classroom because I don't like doing that, but that's how I like it. And it's challenging. It's forcing me to think differently. It's forcing me to grow as a person. And it's brilliant because it's not mundane. It's not easy. And that's exactly how I like it.
What were the first, like, 3 or 4 things that you knew, "I gotta take care of these things to kinda get this ball rolling"? I mean, are you finding a building to run this stuff in? Are you just trying to find kids that'll be a part of it, coaching staff? Like, where do you even begin to kind of franchise and start your own thing a little bit?
Well, the Football Fun Factory, they have like a lot of what they call how-to guides. So when you express your interest in taking on a franchise, it's not just a case of, okay, you've expressed an interest, we'll take you on. They're very selective about who they choose as head coaches. Um, so the process I kind of went through initially was, okay, I've expressed an interest in becoming a franchisee. So then they have Luke Chadwick, who's a former pro player in England. You have a call with him. He talks to you, explains the business, asks you about your coaching career, your coaching experience, why you want to be a franchisee. If Luke then decides that, okay, this guy might be a good fit, then you go down to, I went down to Cambridge one weekend not last year, the year before. I met with the owners of the organization, had a couple of hours chat with them. Then I delivered a coaching session just for them to see how I coach, how I interact with the children, etc. And then there's other steps that you go through before you're officially an owner of a franchise. But everything they gave us literally step by step. This is the best way to go about doing this. This is the best way to go about doing that. and I just followed literally step by step because I was like, I'm not smart enough to do this on my own. So it's good that they have all this stuff in place for me to get the ball rolling. But yeah, you know, it was up to me then to go and hire some staff. It was up to me to go and source the venues. It was up to me to promote the sessions so that the children would then come. So putting all of those pieces together was just a big learning curve for me because I've never had to do that before. I was always there's the team or there's the camp and everything's there. Now you go and coach on it. You go and deliver it. But now I'm doing the other side of it too, which again, not my favorite part of coaching, but I'm smart enough to know that if I don't do ABC, then I'm not going to be delivering a session on Wednesday night because nobody's going to be there. I'm not going to have a venue. I'm not going to have assistant coaches to help me deliver the session. So it was just putting all those little pieces together. So the puzzle came out nicely in the end.
You mentioned earlier too that Football Fun Factory wants to grow and just get larger and larger. So is this only found in the UK? Are they starting to pop up in other places, like maybe here in the US? Are there plans that you know of that maybe they start branching out, or right now are they just trying to build a quality reputation and brand right there, in the UK?
Yeah, so currently it's all based in the UK. So off the top of my head, I know there was 5 new head coaches that came on this past weekend. So I think that takes the total now to about 60. So across the UK, there are 60 Football Fun Factory locations where children can sign up to the weekly sessions and go to their training. But I mean, I don't know this for sure because I'm not in charge of the future plans and stuff like that. But I know that the company wants to be the world's leading coaching organization, so it's going to go overseas eventually. I would love to bring it to America or somewhere like that, but I can't make that decision. But for sure, it will happen at some point because the FFF is well known throughout the UK now. They've just started opening up doors in Northern Ireland as well. So it's still the UK, but like that's the first sort of overseas one. When I started, they were only in England. Now there's a couple in Wales. There's I think 2 now in Scotland. So it's slowly growing, and it's only going to keep going because it's very unique. That I haven't seen anything like it in terms of everything that we do. Yes, there's lots of organizations that do sessions for 2 to 5-year-olds. There's lots of organizations that do sessions for 5 to 12-year-olds. But I've never seen an organization that does sessions for 2 to 5-year-olds inside an inflatable football pitch like we do. I've never seen an organization run a summer camp with an inflatable pitch, an inflatable goal, an inflatable dartboard for the children to play on. But we do that. So there are so many things that are unique to the Football Fun Factory that aren't out there, especially in the UK. I don't know about other countries. There may be other stuff like that around, but I'd never seen anything like it. And, you add that onto the fun side of it as well. What's not to like? So yeah, keep an eye on it. It might be in the US very soon.
That would be awesome. What in terms of where you're at, so you've done like an amazing experience with your dad, when you're younger, to coming over to the States and coaching, to now being here and you're doing the FFF thing, and it's growing. When you look ahead, do you have aspirations of like even bigger things, like maybe moving up in the organization or owning a couple of places, or are you just kind of content and you want to make your franchise the best that it can be?
I for sure want to make my franchise currently the best that it can be. Um, in long term, my wife and I definitely want to get back to the US for sure. Whether that's me bringing the Football Fun Factory over to the US or whether that's us looking at something else, I don't know. Um, Me, perfect scenario, we would bring the Football Fun Factory over to the US because having experienced what soccer, the transition from soccer from 2008 to 2016 when I was there was huge. And I can, I follow everything on Twitter and I see how much the game is growing. The World Cup's coming back in 2026. The interest in soccer throughout the US is unbelievable. And I've seen how big camps can be throughout the summer. I've seen how much little children want to get involved in the game. And I can picture the Football Fun Factory been an absolute blast in the US. I think the only sticking point would be the word football because people might think it's American football as opposed to soccer, but the ball's in the logo, as you can see right here. So there shouldn't be too much confusion. But yeah, I think long term, I would love to bring the football fun factory to the US because I think children around the states would absolutely love it.
That is a perfect way to shut this chat down. This is Kieran, Coach's Corner Chats with Joe Quigley of Football Fun Factory, and I'm out. Peace.
Thank you. Take care.
Joe, that was awesome, man.
Yeah, really enjoyed that.
What a what an awesome I've had probably 4 or 5 other coaches that have been in England and moved over, and I don't think we understand or grasp the impact of the visa on your ability to get, employment, to stay over here.
Mm,
Um, like my parents are like my dad's from was born in Ireland, my mom was born in London. So they came over into DC to do some research and stuff there, and they just happened to kind of like you. They got a visa, then they kind of added on to the visa, and then just went through and are now citizens.
mm,
Um, but the other ones were like it was really hard because it takes time. There's a lot of paperwork. There's money involved. So finding a college or wherever you're working to help cover the cost and all that kind of stuff, and just the impact it has. I mean, it literally causes you have to move back across the the ocean and stuff. But the Fun Factory sounds awesome. I
it's
watched a
great.
lot of I watch a lot of the videos. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like you. I would have freaking have had a blast.
Oh, if this thing was around when I was 5 or 6, I would have been there every holiday, every birthday party. I would have been like, "Mom, Dad, I want a football fun. I want the inflatable goal. I want the dot." Like it's just unbelievable. You can see how much kids love it because I have children that have come to every single camp that we've run last year, at least 2 or 3 days. Even though, we don't run the same stuff every single time, but they know they're going to play on the dartboard and in the pitch and bounce around on the goal and stuff. And they must love it because why would they keep coming back if they didn't enjoy it, right?
That's always a good sign when you have them coming back. Like the following week, or they're bringing friends and all that stuff. That's always up like yeah, we know it's working.
Mm,
And I love it too because I do like a free summer stuff because I'm like a high school coach here. So I always run things with our elementaries, like the younger ages, and I do little camps. And the inflatable field is one of those things I'm looking to get, something like that where I can just like and for 30 minutes they're just rocking and rolling, playing and just having a blast.
mm,
Just to kind of get them interested just in the game. But like you said, I love the idea of like the word fun. It's in the name of the company because that's literally what we're doing. We're not worried about. I'm not showing them all their dribble moves and all these other crazy things that people want to spend thousands of dollars on. Let's just
mm,
get them in, run around. If they pick some things up or love it and want to go do something with it, great.
mhm.
If not, like you said, we're making better kids, better future youths and all that.
Yeah, that's for me. That's what youth sport should be all about. You're not trying to create the next, you know, David Beckham or Messi or Kobe Bryant or whatever superstar in sport you're coaching. You're just trying to make sure that children are active and they're having a good time, and they go home and tell their parents, "Oh, I learned this little trick today," or "Coach told me that I should try this next time," and then they come back and they want to keep coming back because if you're doing it right and they keep coming back, they're going to keep coming back. If you're doing it wrong and they're not enjoying it, you're going to lose them.
Yeah. That's so awesome. What has been the a dynamic because having like that Colombian background and then your English background, what has that been like in terms of I don't really get into this, but I was just thinking, what do meals look like? Is there a little bit of a Colombian kind of that South American taste, or is there a compromise, a little bit of both, or how does all that kind of
Yeah,
work out? Or is it all American type stuff now?
it's no, it's. I mean, to be honest, we don't really do a lot of Colombian food um, because in Colombia, like when they cook food, they cook it properly and they take their time cooking it, and
Mhm.
it's like a whole journey. Um, So like if we go to Colombia, we'll do that. But here, because we have the little one now, she's only like 15 months, so we don't have a lot of time to sort of be cooking and being all fancy with our food and stuff. So we just kind of do whatever's quick and whatever's easiest at the moment. There's a lot of pasta. There's a lot of stir fries. There's just quick and easy things to make. But Kelly's mum came over last year. She's coming over again in a couple months, and she'll make a bunch of stuff. Like she will take the time to make beautiful food. We go to there's a local. Well, I say there's a local. There's a Colombian cafe about 20 minutes away from us. Like authentic. The family that run it are unbelievable, lovely people, and they do real good food. So like if Kelly has the urge to go and eat some good Colombian food, we'll go there every once in a while. But at home, we're pretty boring. We're not very fancy when it comes to cooking.
Is your little one up and about, like on walking and what have you? And if so, do you take her to the Fun Factory once in a while just to kind of be around it and experience it? Like put her in there, like no one else is allowed in the pitch right now because she's got control of the whole thing.
She started walking probably about 6 weeks ago. I haven't taken her to work yet, just because she's still kind of finding her feet. She actually came on Sunday. Kelly brought her for the first time just at the end of the session, just so she could kind of see it and sort of just get an idea of what Daddy does when he goes to work with. Because she'll say football. Like as soon as I put my coaching top on, she sees the ball and she'll go, "Oh, well, football." So she knows I'm going to work. So she hasn't experienced it yet, but she's only 15 months, so there's plenty of time. Her second birthday in December. I'm so sad. I've already looked, and it's on a Sunday, and I run my 2 classes for 2 to 5 year olds on a Sunday. So I've already said to Kelly, like, I don't care what happens on her second birthday. I'm getting her a Man United kit. She's going to wear it to her first football session. Daddy's going to coach her for 45 minutes. And that's going to be her first proper experience of being in a little sort of football-y type group. We have a little spongy football that we found in IKEA, that she walks around here and she'll go kick, kick. And, she's getting there, but I don't want to force it on her. Like, I don't want to be one of those parents. It's like, she has to play football. If she takes it up, great. We'll give it a try. If she doesn't like it, no big deal.
Joe, this has been awesome. I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's late there, and what have you, but I appreciate you hopping on and keep crushing it. And I'm super excited to keep kind of following the growth of not only your kind of franchise, but just the whole FFF type thing. I absolutely love it. I think it's so cool. And I appreciate you taking the time to chat and share your journey. Really, really cool to kind of see where you're at. And I'm excited to see kind of where you head moving forward.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Kieran. It's been a really enjoyable. What is it? Almost an hour. Wow, that went quick.
Yeah, not too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I hear you. It was good stuff.
really enjoyed it. And did you go to the convention in January? Did I see that on your Twitter?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, my plan is to go to over to Anaheim next year. I couldn't get there this year because of the baby and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping to get out to Anaheim next year. So if
We'll
I'm
have
there
to,
and you're there, we'll link
well,
up.
for sure. Yeah, we'll meet up and what have you. That'd be awesome.
All right.
All
I
right.
look forward to it.
Right on. Hey, get some sleep. So I know you got to rock and roll again tomorrow.
As always.
Always. Awesome. Take care, Joe.
Thanks, Kieran. You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.